Hello, boys and girls. Today I will be reviewing Stefan Molyneux and his video, Why I Was Wrong About Atheism. Now, obviously Stefan is an atheist himself, and he talks up the virtues of atheism. And this video is him playing devil's advocate on his own position to try to debunk himself, I suppose, in a way. Let's look at how he fares in this attempt.
So this is a challenging topic, to put it mildly. Issues that I have with atheists and with atheism. Now, I was raised as a good Christian boy. I was in the church choir, went religiously, you could say, and for various reasons I've talked about in my show, it's changed. But I have found myself growing increasingly impatient with atheists. Hey, it could just be because I'm cranky and old, but I think there's also some good reasons for it, which I'll share with you, and then you can tell me what you think in the comments below. And I look.
So my first problem immediately is Stefan saying that I am becoming frustrated with the views of atheists. In any way, saying something like this assumes that atheists have any sort of cohesion as a community. There's very little that any atheists have to do with one another other than the fact that, hey, they don't believe in God. The non-belief in God doesn't tell you anything else about a person's political leanings or their anything else. I mean, there are certain proclivities that atheists have. They're much less likely to commit crime. They divorce at a lower rate than Christians or religious people in general. So there are proclivities, yes. However, atheists think X way is a tenuous argument at best.
So one thing I can't help but notice is that if you are an atheist, overwhelmingly you are for big government. You are a leftist. You are on the liberal side. Almost 70% of atheists in the U.S. identify as Democrats or lean in that direction. Majority call themselves political liberals, and 1 in 10 atheists say that they are conservatives.
Well, 1 in 10 atheists consider themselves conservative. Gee, I wonder why that would be. It wouldn't happen to be the fact that conservatives are by and large Christians in America, and Christians, if you are an atheist, have a core set of beliefs that you would find irrational or ridiculous. So why would you want to go along with those kinds of beliefs? I mean, conservative Christians in America are by and large the only people who are anti-gay marriage, are anti-abortion, are want any kind of laws governing sexual proclivities, anything like that. They're against transgenderism. They're, the basic Republican fare in America. So I don't think it's that unreasonable for the majority of atheists to look at that kind of ideology and say, not really for me. So it's not surprising that the vast majority of them would not consider themselves Republicans or conservatives.
Plus is that it's for smaller government. Almost 3/4 of atheists say that coercive government redistribution of money to the poor in the form of welfare does much more good than harm. And that is a challenging statement.
Now, that is true, that atheists being more likely to be liberal in America are more likely to be pro-socialist practices that Stefan would be very much against. Does that mean necessarily that atheism causes liberal ideology, or would it be more likely that they just happen to be anti-conservatism because they see the religious fundamentalism in conservatism and they reject that, and really the only other option in America is to go towards the Democratic Party and towards socialist policies? So I don't think that one necessarily follows from the other.
In 2012, Barack Obama captured 3/4 of the votes among the religiously unaffiliated, and only 23% voted for John McCain. So, here's the thing. If I live next door to a Christian, that Christian can go to church and can worship and can do whatever they like, and they're not compelling me to do anything.
That I completely reject out of hand. Christians in this country are very, very much, well, evangelical Christians, I should qualify that. Evangelical conservative Christians in this country very much want to institute theocratic policies into our government. That is not exactly just live and let live, as Stefan is implying.
Have their beliefs, I have my beliefs. We shake hands, we exchange cups of sugar in cake emergencies, but they do not force me to do anything. On the other hand, the lefties, by constantly running to Big Daddy government to enforce their moral conscience on everyone else, regardless of consequences, regardless of ethics, regardless of voluntarism, regardless of the need to choose that is essential to virtue, the socialists, by running to Big Daddy government, well, they force me to do lots and lots of things. They take my money, they bury me in regulations, they involve my cash in foreign wars, they do lots of god-awful things, and if I try to follow my own conscience and do what I think is best with my resources, well, they support cats in blue showing up with guns to drag me off to jail because I'm not paying my taxes.
Yes, okay, so Stefan's argument over and over again, because he is an anarchist, is that anytime you require tax money from me, you are essentially robbing me. So the government says, hey, we need taxes to pay for roads or police or military or whatever it is. They are actively robbing you, taking your wealth from you. And that a leftist is someone who is trying to impose the government's will, or the will of some sort of populist will on you through force, through policemen coming to your house with guns. Okay, that's a very Robert Nozick idea. Yes, theft as taxation. I can totally understand the logic behind that argument. You say to me, hey, if you grow a bunch of flowers on your property, those flowers are yours, but if you grow millions and you start selling those flowers, well, then the government taking money out of your pocket from selling your flowers is basically robbing you of your labor. However, that does ignore the fact that if you traded those flowers for no money, say I just went to a farmer and said, here you go, have some of my flowers, and then he gave me some wheat in return for those flowers, well, there's no money being exchanged there. There will be no taxation. Now, of course, there's certain little bylaws in America. There's agricultural taxes and land taxes and so on. So yes, I understand that there are other taxes associated, and I am against those kinds of taxes because of the very principles that Stefan espouses. However, just saying that taxation is theft is incorrect because of the introduction of money. Money is not yours. It does not belong to you. Money always belongs to the government. Taxation is the government's fee, basically, for you using their money for commerce. Now, if you wished to start your own currency and use it among people that agreed to use that currency, well, fair and good. You pay no taxes on that currency. You only pay taxes on exchanges that involve the government's money. And it not being yours, you pay a fee for the right to use that money for commerce.
So, lefties support things like property tax, and property tax means you never really own anything in your house.
I also oppose property tax. I think that once you have purchased your property, that property should be yours in perpetuity, going on to your children and forever. I am personally against property tax. We're in full agreement.
You certainly don't own your house or your condo or whatever, because if you don't pay off the government, they can just come and take it from you. So all you're doing is renting from the government. You never own anything. Christians, Christians have a thou shalt not steal, which gives them some ammunition against increasing state power. So I can't sort of help but notice that the Christians will try to convert me by the word and not the sword of the state, whereas the liberals, the lefties, the Democrats, well, they want to use the sword of the state to make me follow their moral agenda.
Okay, wow, that's incredible. So Christians don't have any interest in forcing you to believe the way that they believe. Atheists currently are the most disliked group of people in America. That is above Muslims, above criminals. Atheists are disliked at a higher rate than criminals by the American society at large. Many states in America actually have laws on the books that forbid atheists from holding public office. Now, obviously, those laws are superseded by federal law, which cancel them out, but still, those laws do exist on the books. That's absolutely a preposterous statement to say that Christians have no interest in dictating my beliefs. That for the entire history of Christianity, and basically for every other religion on earth, other than Judaism, which has this weird, like, we don't want you kind of feel to it, religions in general want to convert people to their religions. That's how the meme of the religion survives. So that seems kind of ridiculous.
And let's just say sword a tad more intrusive than word. And that is something that I can't help but notice. Atheism in and of itself, okay, well, that's, good cases to be made, and it's an intellectual argument that I've made before. But here's the problem. Atheists say that they reject irrational authority. They reject unjust and immoral authority. Very well. How about, and just try this, if you know an atheist or know somebody who's agnostic or whatever, bring to them the basic argument that the government is the initiation of force, that taxation is coercion, and see how they respond. Do they respond with, wow, never really thought of it that way before? Tell me more. Or do they respond as religious fundamentalists respond when you challenge their faith? I will tell you, it is almost invariably the latter. And I've had many, many conversations with atheists about this particular issue.
Okay, there's a massive difference between God as an authority figure and government as an authority figure. I do agree that government is an irrational actor in a lot of ways, and that I sympathize with Stefan's anarchist proclivity. However, the government really exists, and it exists as a body of people who actually do things in our lives on a day-to-day basis. Christianity, or any other religion, is based on a falsehood of a non-existent being, a non-existent God. So there's quite a big difference between a government and a God.
Government is an agency of force, and that which you ask the government to do, you are begging for the initiation of force to be deployed in a geographical area against the specifically unwilling to coerce them to act against their own conscience.
Indeed, that is absolutely true. The argument on the other side is that there are times in which it is preferable to force someone to do something for the good of society as a whole. Let's put it this way. Say I own a piece of land that has the only water on it available for some distance, 1,000 miles, say. I don't know if there is a place that it exactly meets these criteria, but we're just using it as a hypothetical situation. I own a piece of land. It has the only water available for 1,000 miles, and a river that has been feeding a town near my property has dried up due to environmental forces, and my water is the only water available. Now, you could say either that the people in that town need to move away because they made their decision and they knew they bought that land being fed by that particular river, with open eyes, and that river being gone is, they move near the river. It's kind of their fault. Well, yes, okay, that's true in a very one-to-one sense. Okay, yes, that's true. It's my water. I should be able to do what I want with it. It's your fault that you moved somewhere that ran out of water. However, when we're looking at societal good, I could easily make the argument that it is better for society for me to have to distribute that water to the other people who, by no fault of their own, ran out of that river water. That my water should be able to sustain that town rather than me hoarding all of it for myself. That is the basic fundamental disagreement between socialism versus pure capitalism. Capitalism says, no, that's my water, I get to have it, and that's what's morally good. Now, I understand that morally that argument makes sound sense, but that is not to say that the socialist argument of the greatest good for all in that society might require my personal rights to be violated in that instance. So it basically comes down to, are you willing to infringe on the personal, private rights of citizens for the good of everyone? And once you say that you are, in any circumstance, then you have to be okay with, then it becomes a negotiation, right? So if you ever say that it's okay to infringe on someone's right for the good of humankind, well, then you have to be willing to negotiate a larger line. So Stefan's basic line is, nope, we're going to cut it off right there. It's always wrong to infringe on the individual's rights, and it's never good to infringe on their rights, even if it would benefit the rest of humankind massively. I have come to disagree with that. I'm not quite purely libertarian. I think that there are instances where the benefit of mankind it warrants some infringing on personal rights.
And that basic reality is that it sort of helped me to understand that for the most part, atheism is an outgrowth of faith in the modern God called the state.
Absolutely incorrect right there. That is where it's wrong. Having a lack of belief or lack of faith in God usually precludes the lack of faith in everything else. So we see consistently atheists have a very, very low level on average of nationalism. Now, how could someone who has a very low level of nationalist believe in increased state? There is a balance. To say that you are in favor of, say, social welfare for single mothers, or I'm in favor of public libraries, or I'm in favor of public schools. Saying any one of those things is not saying that I am in favor of socialism as a whole enacted good. I believe that there is room for compromise. It's funny to take a statement of, well, I'm in favor of public school, and then that statement runs me right into, I'm in favor of the government taking over all private enterprise and being the sole arbiter of finance in the economy. Those things, I think, are separate. This is where I think Stefan misses the mark. I don't know if I want to say drastically, but it's a fairly big miss.
That is their new deity, the state. Got a problem? Run to the state. Need something solved? Run to the state. Want something done? Run to the state. Feel bad about something? Pass a law. Take more money. Borrow more money. Print more money. Make more wars.
He there is describing totalitarianism on the left. So leftist totalitarian doctrine. Yes, absolutely. Authoritarian leftist behavior is rampant in our society and is absolutely a negative and should be cut out. That's where you get, I mean, on the silly fringe side is the SJW school of thought and this kind of language policing, but it goes much deeper. I mean, there is a a vast amount of wealth that is being frittered away by leftist policies in America, and that's absolutely true. But Stefan tends to have this throw the baby out with the bathwater type outlook on socialist policy in general. There's a lot more nuance than I believe Stefan is allowing for.
That's how we solve everything. Run to the state. Get the guns out and everything is solved. And atheists in general, when they perceive a social problem, they just run to the government. And then atheists have the nerve to say to Christians, well, you just have this magical thing called God, which is supposed to solve all of these problems, like where the universe came from and how we evolved and so on. How ridiculous of you. I mean, that's not an answer to anything.
Again, the difference between a government that actually can affect problems in your lives, negatively, it always negatively according to Stefan, but in my eyes, sometimes negatively, sometimes positively. I mean, the government is responsible for NASA, it's responsible for the Panama Canal, it's responsible for a lot of different things like that. I would say that have benefited humankind quite a bit. I mean, our military-industrial complex in general is a government-run entity, and that has been responsible for massive amounts of R&D that have given us so many technological advancements that basically without the military-industrial complex, we would be still stuck 80 years ago as far as technology goes. There's pros and cons to every situation, of course. I'm anti-military industrial complex. However, I do recognize that without it, there would be a lot of the internet that Stefan uses to broadcast his message would not have been possible had it not been for government investment into the military industrial complex. So I think that there is middle ground.
Well, at least it's a peaceful answer to something. At least it's a non-blanket, geographically enveloping, coercive answer to something. Do I particularly care that a Christian says that God created the universe? Yeah. It's not a big list on my priorities come tax time.
Well, of course not, because each individual Christian can believe whatever they want. That's not the problem. I don't walk around with the idea in my head that I must fight back against the tyranny of leprechaun believers. No, it's because Christians have very directed and very real impacts on our political discourse as a country. That's a real thing that Christians with their belief that God created the world 10,000 years ago would possibly be in favor of defunding medical advances that rely on evolution, for example. We see this with anti-stem cell research. I mean, stem cell research is essential to curing a whole host of conditions, but Christians oppose it because specifically it's somehow against something in the Bible. I'm not really sure what exactly they're quoting. I mean, there was no stem cell stuff 2,000 years ago, so it's all extrapolation. It's all nonsense that they've made up in their own minds, and it actually affects real world situations and policies.
But when atheists want the state to magically use guns to solve every problem in the known universe,
and there's the thing. Magically solve problems in the known universe? It doesn't magically solve anything. It actually uses a real gun to solve a real problem. It doesn't magically do anything. That's the major difference. This continues on in this vein for a while, and I think that I've made my point. I don't need to beat a dead horse. But just to recap, atheism, not a school of thought. It is merely the lack of belief in God. Atheists believe in all kinds of different political structures and political systems. There are atheist anarchists, just like Stefan here. There are atheists that are totally socialist and communist. There's atheists that are way libertarian, and everything in between. You look at Penn Jillette versus Stefan Molyneux. Those are two very, very different ways of looking at the world, yet they are parallel in that they are both atheist. So that's my presentation for today, and I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks.